Hey yo, what's up, and welcome to my corner of the internet. So today, I'm going to tell you about the animes that helped make me who I am today. Also, before we get started, please like, comment, and subscribe. That'll be much appreciated. We got goals before the end of the year, and I plan to hit them. Hopefully. So, I came upon this idea because I thought about, I'm 28, and it's time I tell people about the animes that help make this monstrosity of a personality that I have into what it is today, and maybe I can recommend to you some great anime along the way.
今日の朝日重工本社から預けられた荷物は一つっきり。ボルネオ支社長に渡すまでは厳重保管。それがこいつだな。
そうだ。それより僕の聞きたいのは。
それで全部だよ。お前に聞くことは。
Yes, it is another Black Lagoon video. Black Lagoon is a wild ride. It is not an anime for the faint of heart. It is not an anime that you can watch with children around, and I probably shouldn't have been watching it as a child myself. Black Lagoon is following in this 2000s to 2010s trend of businessmen ending up asking you a question. And that fundamental question is, are you truly living? It's basically a remnant of the past of where men this is like well before like the manosphere became a thing. This is like the beginning embers of that like thought process. This is men that feel as though they were the forgotten generation and they are now in office jobs and they're angry about it. Now, this birthed a genre where people birthed media talking about this suffering. Fight Club is one of them. Office Space, a lot of different movies throughout my childhood that I've watched just in passing. There's so many instances of the businessman who decides to buck against the system. American Dream is one of them, even though, content warning and Cadence Spacey, This is Black Lagoon, who is a part of that and also indicative of what's to come in the future.
資材調達部だったからね。出張して報告書を出して電話かけてでも頭下げてるのが本当の仕事だったような気。
Because our main character is Rock, a Japanese businessman, through some sort of mistake, ends up being basically a hostage, and the wild ride gets him to meet pirates on this island, and it is an island of degenerates, crime, drugs, everything you could imagine a terrible place having. This place have it, and it has terrible stories, mixture of philosophies, abject sadness, depression, and squalor is what's introduced to our main character, and our main character ends up loving it. He ends up loving the fringes of this world, and he grows to be a part of it. And there's two things that I got from our main character at that moment was abject nihilism. I'm going to put that definition on the screen. And this idea of what happens when society fails us. And that's the beginning of the greatness of Black Lagoon. There's this moment where someone who did everything right is failed, and he realizes that failing sets him free, and he chooses to stay in this hellhole. And that's the fun part about Rock. He is a foot in the door of what happens when you're left behind. And we then meet Revi, who was left behind and had to survive, and now is a psychotic killer who uses two guns, and they're called cutlasses, and they're so cool. This is the coolest anime ever. In between the killing, and there's that episode of hating Yahtzees, and God, I remember when being a Yahtzee was one of the worst things you could possibly ever do. But hey, times have changed, I guess. Like why I haven't listened to a Kanye album in the last 10 years. Anyway, nothing matters. This anime is about what happens in the world, and it also tells you about people's choices, the meaning that is made, the meaning that is found. These things are important to the human experience because a moment where things don't matter here is a moment where it can mean so much differently. The Vampire Twins episode, saga, very much so meant something to me because with how the music was played, depending on the moment, you cared. You cared about these psychotic children that were murderers, very smart murderers, but then they ended up trifling with one of the worst villains in the entire story that we never really get to heads with. Balalaika is the boogeyman, but she also hints at something so fun that I think about whenever I think about Black Lagoon. Besides all the other nihilism and stuff I'm gonna just like put on screen to like define for you, because these are things that I should give to you selflessly, and with enough information you'll be able to delve into them yourself. What I have been taught about nihilism, and I definitely can be corrected at any point in this, is nihilism is all things are meaningless. Nothing matters. Now, this is my favorite part about Black Lagoon. Nothing does matter until other humans make it matter. Black Lagoon is littered with these moments between Revy and Rock, and these moments where they don't tell us what is really going on, but you either have the meaning that can be shared or you don't. When Revy and Rock share a cigarette, when they argue, the differences between how they feel and how their ways of life, when Rock is subjected to a horror and witnesses someone else's story unfold before him and their end, you wonder, what does this all mean? And also, why does this matter?
無理だ。あの子は殺しをやめられないよ。誰かがほんの少し優しければ、あの子たちは学校に通い、友達を作って幸せに暮らしただろう。でも、そうな。
One thing I liked most about Black Lagoon was it wasn't really trying to tell me anything, to be honest with you. It was just showing me a story where human beings are able to exist, and through their existence, a story unfolds. And that's kind of funny. That's funny how the most hard-hitting stories I've ever loved in anime were the stories where characters made choices that were realistic to human beings, and the story was not about a goal, it was about humans existing. We were the story, and there is an inherent beauty and meaning that comes when human beings are allowed to exist in that space where they make their ups and downs. It was this idea of nothing matters, and we were our own God and we were our own devil at that moment. The choices made by Revy to kill so many different people and go crazy, and the horrors that she would re-experience while she did these things in defending herself. And then these moments where Rock was confronted with the seriousness of the world he is deciding to plunge himself deeper and deeper into. And then understanding the backstories of the villains that he ran around with, and looking at the horrors, and juggled all these things so wonderfully and didn't even slip at one moment. Black Lagoon taught me that meaning was made and found, and that's important to living. If you think something matters, then it matters. Maybe not to everyone, but most of all, it mattered to you. Black Lagoon taught me nihilism. Everything is meaningless. Yeah, so, whatever. Go live your life anyway. Which was a fun thought. And also, what happens when society fails us? I think that's one of those things that like really stick with me, is because I've been lucky enough to live in certain places where my story was able to succeed. Like, I graduated college about a year ago, and I've gone on exchange. I've lived a bit of a life, and I've done things and I've seen things that most people have never experienced. Humble brag, humble brag, humble brag. But between all of that, I think about how my story could have been different if one person didn't lift me up or support my family in the ways that they did, or I didn't have such a great mom.
ひどい話だな。俺たちの世界にこそふさわしい。俺は時々どでかいクソの上を歩いてる気分になるよ。俺には道徳やら正義やらは肌に合わん。その手の言葉はケツから。
That's very much so a part of my story, and the people that didn't make it through or didn't get the chance to see what this world has to offer. I realize I'm closer to them than I would ever be to, I guess, those that have never known that level of suffering. And Black Lagoon means that to me, a story that showed me people living their life that had moments, and there was hilarity in the horror, and there was a moment where we were all human just trying to make a life. And that is one of the best things I could tell you about this anime. So, if you're wondering why I was the way that I was, it's because of Black Lagoon. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you so much. I think about the week after next, I'll tell you about another anime that made me who I am today. Peace. Thank you so much for watching.